Okay, I'm going to be attempting to move through chapter one in Robert Avens' The New Gnosis, Heidegger, Hillman, and Angels, which is entitled Soul and World, section one, Dasein, Being, and Truth. We've been talking about gnosis as knowing by being, so kind of existential knowing having to do with the cultivation of the soul, and transformative knowing. We were talking about it in the context of Henry Corbin's imaginal world, mundus imaginalis, this world that we can inhabit by taking up the perspective of the soul between ideas and things, and by engaging in relation with the beings, divine doubles, or angels which inhabit or populate that space. It has to do with the, let's say, this psychology and cognitive science of perspective taking to invoke some Praveki along the way in, for me, in the context of intentional practice to deepen our experience of living, deepen our relationship with being in the world. And as we move on from that, we start to explore more Heidegger. And so it's a little Heideggerian. We're going to explore some terms during some philosophy. Yeah, and so according to Avens, and I'm essentially just like moving through this exegesis and drawing heavily from Avens here. It's a great book. The Gnosis of Heidegger and Hillman is it's intended to overcome dualisms between inner versus outer, spiritual versus material, and reality versus appearance by recovering a kind of level of awareness or a certain depth of presence that's kind of more original than sensation and perception on the one hand, and by ratiocinate, ratiocination. I can't pronounce the word. Anyway, it's a little bit late. Between ideas and sensations, essentially. And for me, obviously, this is connected with with this, which I'll just like show here and then not talk about. It has to do with overcoming dualisms of all kinds. From one becomes two, two becomes three, and from the third comes the one's the fourth. So rather than getting stuck in, this is from Maria Prophetisa, rather than getting stuck in dualities, can we move beyond them? And Gnosis is intended to, it's about participatory knowing. It's about experiencing more deeply, experiencing salvific knowledge of some kind. Salvific in the sense of releasing something into itself, setting it free, getting rid of whatever impedes something. This is what we mean by salvational knowledge. And this is why it's connected with the cultivation of the soul, Gnosis. And so in Heidegger, there are several terms that point to that level of our being. Dasein, being, Ereignis, Erinus, I pronounce that. Usually it translates as event of appropriation. Anyway, aletheia is truth, is a kind of, yeah, unveiling or unconcealment. The fourfold and physis are all terms in Heidegger that point to this level of being that we're talking about. In Hillman and archetypal psychology, the corresponding concepts are soul or psyche and imagination. And so we can take any of those terms as a starting point. But we're going to begin with Dasein and being. So, Dasein, what is it? In Heidegger, I'd recommend some facility with Heidegger to be here. It means existence, life, presence. Expresses the concreteness of here and now. It's kind of Dasein is one's being in its here-ness. It's not a possession, it's being here in the world. It's not, according to Avens, this all is, it's not exactly referring to us in a humanistic or anthropological sense. It's as an existential quality. Yeah. There's a well-known definition of being in time, which is Heidegger's really difficult, right? But the essence of Dasein lies in its existence, existence in the world. But another way to say this is that the man or the human occurs, we occur in the world essentially in such a way that he is there, that we're here, you know? That is the lighting of being, the lighting of being that we're here in the world. So there's a kind of structural similarity between being and Dasein, meaning to be means to be open, to be unhidden or apparent. And Dasein it means to be in the place of this openness and unconcealment, to be revealed. So Dasein doesn't refer to human, but to the place of the presence and revelation of being, beingness, where the Da in Dasein is being itself, being itself, brought out of concealment into disclosure. So the disclosure of being. And that disclosure is also the truth, or in the sense of aletheia, the unveiling of being. Dasein is the truth of being. Or from Vaisinas, is an author. Dasein is being in its openness. Okay, so that was Dasein in Heidegger. I said it would be philosophical. And so, yeah. So the word existence to Heidegger refers to the fact that it's not that we're an object like other objects, but that we are, we're present, we have being. We're a creature for whom our own nature is at stake. Our very essence lies in our quote possibilizing thrust toward the future. We're sort of being here in the world, and there's a fully staking ourselves within our being that is occurring in a way that we're sort of being, and it's a quality of being, which is being outward toward possibilities. So man is not simply a rational animal, as per Aristotle, or simply a combination of essence or existence, soul and body. There's a way that human existence, according to Heidegger, is when we talk about existence, it has a quality of being essentially ecstatic, by which we mean self-exceeding. By being, by existing, we stand beyond ourselves. So there's an orienting that goes along with our existing, which is that we are oriented, or in the terms of this, we're oriented toward the possibilities, toward the future. We're available to that in our existence. So it's a kind of inherent quality of our existence that we're toward possibility, toward possibilities. That's what we mean by ecstatic, self-exceeding, going beyond ourselves. And that means that we're truly human when we stand in the openness of being. So it's not just an inherent quality, it's something that we can get a sense of and actually feel our way into. When we stand in the openness of being, meaning that we actually are the place where being opens up and reveals itself. And we can actually be conscious of that. So what are we? Well, what is our existence? What do we mean by existence? To be a place where being opens up and reveals itself. So this definition of human as the truth of being, the openness of being, it's qualified by Heidegger in terms of guardianship. Man is the guardian of the truth of being. He's the shepherd of being. It has a quality like a guardian angel, constantly alert, watching, like the Hindu Purusha, sort of preventing us from self-absorption. There's an orientation toward the existence that where that we are, that is happening. So Avens draws from Heidegger's essay, What is Called Thinking, to talk about Heidegger's understanding of the Greek verb noin, as in noesis. There's a pre-Socratic sense of this is to perceive. This is connected with for Viveki with the perspectival with perspectival knowing. I'm just going to leave that there. Yeah, so it's to perceive deeply, knowing as in noesis, to be attentive to something. Knowing means taking to mind or taking to heart and keeping at heart, which is it's a quality of seeing deeply, but also taking within. This is what we mean by knowing is usually translated as thinking. So we're actually talking about what something deeper than thinking that is going on. We're going to explore a connection between this. We were talking about guardianship of being, and this deeper sense of thinking, namely knowing, meaning to taking to heart, taking to mind, and keeping at heart. But what is taken to heart, whatever it might be, is left to be exactly as it is. And that's exactly what we're doing by understanding these terms. So when we take a term like this and we take it in, we hear it, we listen, and then we digest it. Heidegger refers to this as kind of scenting, as in the way that animals scent the air. This way of taking it into our heart, taking it into our mind, and letting it be there, letting it digest or to steep within one's being. This is knowing, to perceive deeply, to be attentive to something. This is what Heidegger is really getting at by thinking. You can see like yes, we're thinking, but we're also trying to get a sense to perceive deeply what Heidegger is talking about. And there's a connection between that thinking and the guardianship of being that we were speaking of. And that means that Avens says that there's an animality to our angelicity. Or what he means by that is that there's something about like this quality of testing or scenting these different terms, getting familiar with them, taking them in and digesting them. There's something animalistic about that, something primordial or primal. And this allows us to get some clarity about Dasein, existence, life, presence, what it's like to be here in the world, existing and being aware of existing, not just to be the guardian of being as it reveals itself, but that Dasein is ecstatic, meaning self-exceeding, going beyond oneself, going toward the possibilities, going into the terms, going into the philosophy, going into life itself, going into more existence. Dasein is an ecstatic It's not rational, it's not blissful either. Dasein is an ecstatic animal whose essence is to watch, so as to let things be just as they are. And so there's a kind of exploring here, which is happening, right? Dasein is being here. It's being conscious of existing. And there's a quality of guardianship, being the guardian of the open space of the truth of being and thinking in this deeper sense of noesis, perceiving, taking something in, dwelling with it, scenting these terms in an animalistic way, where Dasein is an ecstatic animal whose essence is to watch so as to let things be just as they are. And so this way that as we feel, as we get a sense for each of these terms, there's actually gnosis, as in salvational knowledge in the sense that, well, this is deepening the soul. Can you feel that? I can feel that. But it's also salvational in the sense of freeing things, releasing these terms to be as they are. So we get a sense of what each of these terms are in their existence as we get a sense of our own existence in being here. Okay, we've covered some of what we meant by Dasein, by existence, and by knowing. We're now moving to page 22, which is about the word being itself, capital B being, which is apparently difficult to grasp what Heidegger means. It's a verb and a noun. So, in the sense of a noun, it's a name for beings, like things, like a table, like a chair. Anything that is a being, but this is quite empty. So, as a verb, it signifies the to be of things. What does this mean? So, Heidegger thinks we've really been preoccupied with things as objects. This is a sort of onto theological problem. Yep. So, anyway, I won't go on about that. I'm just going to say, um, yeah, we've been modeling being on the concept of an object thing, and Heidegger doesn't like that because the result of it apparently is that reality becomes only the subject's picture. It's in reality is objectified, put in relation to a subject, to us. So there's a kind of loss of the beyond. There's a loss of deep connection with mystery, and therefore disconnection with reality. So for Heidegger, by contrast, being is also verbed. We also want to get a sense of the verb sense of being. And that means that it does not have an independent or separate reality. It's not a being. This is why we're talking about phenomenology, not just not metaphysics or theology. It's more about process than product. It's more about way than result. It's about verbing rather than nouning. Mhm. So the term being for Heidegger, it's not a vacuous concept. It's standing for something remote or abstract, but for the most concrete and closest of presences. It's about presence. It's about the way that we are here. So it's not just a being here. It's about being. You, I literally don't have words for this. being as a something that we do. So apparently to perceive being, we must turn to sensible things. So being is something that we're immersed in up to our necks. We're over our heads in being. Our ordinary human life moves within a preconceptual understanding of being. And it is this understanding of being in which we live, move, and have our being that Heidegger wants to get at as a philosopher. It's from William Barrett. Yeah, so Heidegger's wanting to invert the Cartesian cogito ergo sum. He's wanting to say that sum has to come first. Not I think that therefore I am, but I am therefore I think. So, but for Heidegger, our mental processes are ecstatic. So they're what was it? Self-exceeding. They allow us to stand beyond ourselves. So we're essentially, and from the beginning, out of doors, going beyond toward possibilities in the world, rather than being trapped in a skin encapsulated ego in the sense of I think, therefore I am. I'm going to read a passage from Heidegger, which is a risky thing to do. And so I'm just going to read the passage. It says, when Dasein, when Dasein directs itself towards something and grasps it, it does not somehow first get out of an inner sphere in which it's been encapsulated, but its primary kind of being is such that it is always outside, alongside entities which it encounters. And furthermore, the perceiving of what is known is not a process of returning with one's booty to the cabinet of consciousness after one has gone out and grasped it. Even in perceiving, retaining, and preserving, the Dasein which knows remains outside, and it does so as a commercium of the subject with a world. And it does so as a commercium of the subject with a world, does not get created for the first time by knowing. Nor does it arise from some way in which the world acts upon a subject. Knowing is a mode of Dasein founded upon being in the world. Anyway, so it's this quality of like always being outside, never returning to a space of being trapped within a skin encapsulated ego. We're talking about the term being in Heidegger. So what do we mean by being in the world? Dasein's being in the world, not simply being, but being in the world, is a unitary phenomenon. It's a primary datum. And so the question of whether the world exists apart from the knowing subject doesn't arise. So for Heidegger, that's a kind of non-question, whether the world exists apart from the knowing subject. So there's a way that the Dasein and the world that Dasein is within, being in the world, they arise together. Juxtapose this with Hillman's observation. Imagine how much serious time is spent proving the reality of the external world. Imagine having to prove what every animal knows. That was about being in the world. We're talking about Heideggerian phenomenology. And so that means that according to Heidegger, being means appearing. Being means appearing here. This does not say something supplemental, which befalls being occasionally. Being essentiates as appearing. Apparently, Heidegger's point is that being is not opposed to appearing. Appearing is the lighting process by which beings are lit up. This doesn't really help me here. So they now start talking about this term Lichtung, light or lighting, which is apparently easily forgotten because it's everywhere. The lighting of being. It's a kind of a lighting up, the quality of illumination, revealing or again unveiling. Phenomena as in phenomenology, as in coming from phanesthai to shine forth, to shine, to light. We're talking about seeing quality of it's a quality of seeing that we exist, we are being in such a way that isn't something objective or subjective, nor inner nor outer, but it's a being in the world is something between and beyond opposites. So there's a lighting up of an open domain, which is between and beyond opposites. And the light of this open domain is what enables encounters between subjects and objects to come about. So I think for me, this is the sense that the one precedes the two, but the one is also the third in this context. It's the between space. In last resort, the light is Dasein. The light or being is Dasein. Dasein is being in its openness. Dasein is being in its openness, the place where meaning originates, the there of meaning. In archetypal psychology, this place is the soul. Here, it's that unknown component which makes meaning possible. It turns events into experiences. So then Avens suggests that Dasein equals being, which equals soul. Dasein equals being, which equals soul. He quotes Heidegger again. Why is it that we are ever and again so quick to forget the subjectivity that belongs to every objectivity? How does it happen that even when we do note that they belong together, we still try to explain each from the standpoint of the other? Why is it that we stubbornly resist considering, even once, whether the belonging together of subject and object does not arise from something that first imparts their nature to both the object and its objectivity, and the subject and its subjectivity, and hence is prior to the realm of their reciprocity? So Dasein equals being equals soul. So Avens now turns to Heidegger's treatment of Plato, which is kind of famously at this point a little perhaps inadequate or unfair. So We're looking at Plato's allegory of the cave, which is the first time that the world of things becomes something objective, apparently, that we face as spectators. And from that point, we begin to encounter things optically by means of their looks. So something aestheticizing. So there's a way that at this juncture, truth takes on the meaning of a static or atemporal presence or idea separated from the beholder and is finally declared to consist in the correctness of vision. So it's a correspondence of seeing with the object of the vision. So truth is now identified with correct seeing, and thinking becomes a matter of placing an idea before the mind's eye. It's the proper manipulation of ideas. And so, in that notion of knowledge and its object, we are portrayed as carrying the images of things around in an inner psychic box to compare them occasionally with the things outside the box. So, ideas are mainly said to be inside, or as in Plato, they belong to a purely spiritual realm, radically distinct from the world of sensory appearances. So this is kind of according to Heidegger. In Plato, appearance was declared to be mere appearance and thus degraded. And at the same time, being as idea was exalted to a supersensory realm. A chasm was created between the merely apparent essence here below and real being somewhere on high. So Heidegger thinks that this split, this division between ideas and things, originated with Plato in the allegory of the cave. And so, in light of that, there's a what's referred to as an oblivion of being. Oblivion. So it's a kind of hidden or concealed quality of our there-ness, of our beingness, where again we're talking about Dasein, being in the world, and this quality of inhabiting the world, being in the soul, and that seems to comprise a kind of between space between things and ideas. And it's implied that if we forgot this from Plato, that this between space is voided or hidden from us. Or this is what Avens means by the oblivion of being. It's the oblivion of the there of being, of the here-ness. As a mediating factor between the spiritual and the sensuous. There's someone named Robert Romans. I don't know how to pronounce that man's name. Anyway, Roman Yshyn. Anyway, I'm sorry. They're right on target when they say Western metaphysics forgets the idea, forgets that idea is the appearance, the aspect, the perspective of things, and presumes that ideas are created apart from the world, and apart from the way things show themselves. By contrast, we're wanting to say that ideas and things go together. Heidegger's obviously going to say that the appearance or manifestation, the appearing of things is inseparable from their concealment. At the same time, things are hidden. These aspects of aletheia. Aletheia is about revealing, unconcealing, but also hiding or concealing. There's no presence without absence, no being without a certain lack of being. And so when we get that split, the consequent oblivion of being that we were discussing is not only the oblivion of the presence of being, but also the oblivion of the finite and temporal character of being's essentification in appearing, whatever that means. Zimmerman says, beginning with Plato, metaphysics forgot about the intrinsic relation between being and nothingness, meaning temporality or finitude. So there's a kind of an intrinsic relation between being and temporality and finitude, where metaphysics started to focus on being as the ultimate foundation of reality, wanting to find some rock we can rely on more than anything, you know. Whereas for Heidegger, there's a way that, yes, things appear in their presencing, but they also withdraw into their absencing. So there's a temporal or finite quality that goes along with being. We're almost done here, a couple of pages. So Heidegger's making a correlation between being and appearing. Avens wants to draw on the Hermetic tradition. There's a quality of that the center is everywhere. Centrum est ubique. Ubique. Center is everywhere. This refers in this context to the light that is everywhere, the appearing. It even says, we forget this light because since Plato, our attention is concentrated either on the real world of ideas or on the illusory realm of sensible things. But what escapes us constantly is the mediating function of light. It's da, it's the there-ness of light, or light as the soul of things. And so the quality of the oblivion of being that we've been talking about has to do with misdirected attention, where the awareness of being, which also means it's not only the awareness of being, it's also the awareness which belongs to being, the being which has awareness, can be recovered by redirecting attention to the center, which is everywhere, by realizing that there are many centers and that being is wholly and indiscriminately present at each one of them. Each center, everything in being, is a potential source of meaning. Each center, everything in being is a potential source of meaning. And that means, apparently, according to Avens, that Heidegger's sentence, being essentiates as appearing, can now be read, being is everywhere. Not single, but multiple. One yet many. Infinite yet limited. It also implies that to say that being is everywhere, I would talk about this simply as a profoundly deepened awareness of Dasein or our being here as a center of consciousness, a center of awareness. So this is deepening what I would invoke the I-thou relationship from Martin Buber here. This is a being deeply present or present to the awareness of beings. So to say that being is everywhere also means that being is truth as the Da, the revelation of being. I don't get that one, so I'm going to leave it. Trying to get over the page here to finish. And so we're looking for a minute at Heidegger's theory of truth on the Greek aletheia, composed of two elements. The as in atheistic, atemporal, a perception. The A is kind of negative or privative. And then the rest of it, aletheia as in lethe. Lethe, it's a verb. Lethe or lanthano, which means to escape notice, to be hidden. So aletheia means to truth. It's to be revealed, to be unconcealed, to be unveiled, to be unhidden, to come into notice. So truth is not correctness of vision, but the dynamic emergence of being into the light of manifestness and a simultaneous presence of hiddenness and concealment. It's a concomitant appearance and withdrawal from view. So I would connect it again, these terms, yeah, we're drawing them into our awareness and becoming present to, we're becoming aware of certain qualities, certain definitions. As we're experiencing them, we're trying to get a sense of these qualities in real time. But other qualities withdraw, conceal themselves from us. So it's aletheia as this dynamic emergence of being into the light of manifestness. But it's that is happening. And also that is, in a sense, happening to being because it's a dynamic emergence of being. It's being here in an aletheic way. So apparently to Avens, this means that inasmuch as truth is unconcealment, it can be grasped only in relation to concealment. So for Heidegger, unconcealment is rooted in concealment, aletheia in lethe. So this being concealed, or this, in a sense, it's forgetting, the forgetfulness of being is a kind of reservoir, and thinking draws from that reservoir. It's a well. This is, I think that's what I would infer is like the place. Look, all these terms, they just go somewhere. Where do they go? They go into the past and they go into the future as well, but they're here. This is what I mean by memory. We're drawing from this reservoir, this well of hiddenness, of concealedness. When we draw out these terms, these meanings, where are we drawing them from? Well, from lethe, from concealment. This is what we mean by aletheia and lethe. They're in relationship with each other. But the lethe, the forgetting, is the reservoir. Quote in Caputo's words, John Caputo. The aletheia process for Heidegger is a process of alethe, where the hyphen serves to bring out that the emergence and rising up of presence take place out of an ineradicable core of concealment of lethe. And just there, what I'm connected is that presence and place in that sentence, which I'm going to repeat, are connected with perspectival and participatory knowing, respectively. So I said the aletheia process for Heidegger is a process of lethe, where the hyphen serves to bring out that the emergence and rising up of presence or perspectival knowing in the sense of threeness. It's connected with three in the sense of like that. So it's for me connected to the three quality. It's connected with logos, with being, with eros, and with the will. And so this, yeah, the aletheia process for Heidegger is a process of aletheia, where the hyphen serves to bring out that the emergence and rising up of presence or perspectival knowing, rising up of presence take place out of, it takes place out of an ineradicable core of concealment, where place is participatory. But participatory is also, that also corresponds to the concealment and to the lethe. It's that, yeah, so presence takes place. So presence is something in place that's taken, and it comes from out of a core of concealment or lethe, and this participatory quality with which I've connected the body, the unconscious, the withdrawal, but also place, ground, context, void, shunyata or mother. These are all of the participatory categories connected with four. So I might ask that one writes down those associations. Again, the aletheia process for Heidegger is a process of alethe, where the hyphen serves to bring out the emergence and rising up of presence take place out of an ineradicable core of concealment of lethe, where concealment is inscribed in the heart of unconcealment, where the inscription, writing or language would be the third, and the heart would be the fourth. So concealment is inscribed, written in the heart of unconcealment. Anyway, moving on, this is within the same quote from Caputo. The lethe in which aletheia rests can also be described in terms of the Tao. The Tao is the reservoir, the inexhaustible void, giving birth to all forms, where void is the four and forms are the three in the same scheme that I was just talking about. This is for me very validating and corroborating of what I was saying. Yeah, the lethe in which aletheia rests can also be described in terms of the Tao as the reservoir, the inexhaustible void giving birth to all forms in the phenomenal world. Quote, the Tao of heaven is empty and formless, says the Kwanzaa. And Lao Tzu uses several metaphors to illustrate this emptiness. He often compares the Tao to a hollow valley, or to a vessel which is forever empty, and thus has the potential of containing an infinity of things. That's the end of the quote from Caputo, which is a little bit complex. Just trying to get over the page here. I'm just going to press on. And so we're talking about Heidegger's term aletheia. This is a term for truth in Heidegger, unconcealing or unveiling. He uses that term because he wants to make the point that the Greeks didn't have a term for truth in the conventional sense. We're talking about the sense of truth, which is like out with it, so that we can see the truth. So things are clear, out in the open. It's not about correspondence between our ideas and reality. It's about being revealed. It's truth in a deeper sense. For me, it has an intensity which is connected with the depth of its existential quality. It's like get out with it, so that things are out in the open, so that we know the truth. The Greeks only had the word alithes or unhidden, meaning evident, manifest, open, or present. And the implications of that are momentous. It suggests that truth is not poked away in some odd corner or other, or popping its head up at some unexpected or unusual juncture of events. From the moment we opened our eyes, a world was disclosed to us. To be in a world, any world, is, insofar forth, to be in the truth. So truth and being are inseparable in that they are given in every single act of existing. To exist means to be exposed to the things, to be placed outside the realm in which concealment rules. To exist is to be there, to be here, or to be in the world, and by the same token, to be in truth, to be in truth. But most of the time, we're not in the world. So it's a kind of unconscious condition of the connected with the fourth. For me, this requires the voice of the outer world from Dune. It requires the voice of God. Most of the time, we're not in the world. We prefer to busy ourselves in asserting our identity against the world without realizing that this self-assertion against the world, this search for identity, is nothing more glorious than a futile attempt to remain the same from moment to moment, day in and day out. We fail to see that we do not belong to ourselves. We do not belong to ourselves, but to being, to the world, to the soul, that our truth is in being in the soul, being in the soul. So that was an overview of certain key Heideggerian terms, including in Heidegger, we were exploring, and this is like through Heidegger's way of, we were exploring Dasein, being, existence, being in the world, being here in an ecstatic way, thinking in the sense of noesis or knowing, being as a verb, not just a noun. This inversion of Descartes in terms of I am, therefore I think. We quoted Heidegger a couple times. We explored the lighting of being, lighting everywhere, between opposites, between subject and object, the appearing, which has a quality of appearing. This equation between Dasein, being, and soul that Avens suggests. How Heidegger explored how he thought Plato got it wrong by introducing this correspondence notion of truth. Obviously, many people disagree that Plato got it wrong anyway. Yeah, so the different senses of truth, where the Greeks didn't have truth as a correspondence between inner ideas and outer things, but they only had out with the truth of being present, being here with the truth that's out in the open. They only had that. Yeah, being is essentially being there in place. I also wanted to mention just in passing on page 26 that it seems that Avon was really talking about the between space and then equating that with the soul and with Dasein. And yes, the soul as an identity can indeed be regarded as a kind of emergent property of tonos arising from the relation between one and the other. But the soul is also taken up as a perspective. It's not just the between space itself that is soul, It's also a perspective within that ensouled world. Um, but I think it can be both. It's like the soul, there's a way that the world appears to the soul, which is ensoulment, you know, but the soul is also a perspective that one takes up, and it's a perspective that one takes up in the world. So soul is the between space and a perspective within that space. So the soul can then be in relation. We drew a little from the Hermetic and alchemical tradition to talk about light as everywhere and the oblivion of being, concealment and unconcealment, aletheia and lethe as a reservoir. And then that key quote from Caputo, where I drew from one becomes two, two becomes three, and from the third comes the one is the fourth, and applied what I mean by that in terms of Caputo's quote, which was quite revealing. So where three, we can understand the three as perspectival knowing, logos being, eros and will, and the participatory as the fourth, the body, the unconscious, withdrawal, place, ground, context, void, shunyata, and mother. Where, yeah, the aletheia process for Heidegger is a process of alethe, where the hyphen serves to bring out that the emergence and rising up of presence, the third, takes place, the fourth, out of an ineradicable core of concealment, also the fourth, of lethe, the fourth. Concealment is inscribed, the third, writing or language, in the heart, the fourth, of unconcealment. So the relationship between these two, the third and the fourth, we're going to start exploring these connections that I'm drawing further on in the text. So we're talking here about there are actually perspectives of either, like we can take up the perspective either, we can be in the position of either the third or the fourth. And when we're in the perspective or position of the third, then then we are revealed. We're being here. We're aware, and we're in relation to the concealment, to the forgetting, to the void. However, if we take up the if we take the place, if we take the place, or if we embody, if we incorporate participation in the fourth, then in a sense, we are that reservoir, and we're spoken to in the sense of the voice of the outer, coming from the outer world, the voice of God. In a sense, we're not in the world, and we're drawn out into the world. You know what I mean? So we are both the ones drawing or inscribing, revealing and unconcealing, but we are also what is unconcealed, what is withdrawn and drawn into. We are the valley, the vessel, the reservoir that we draw ourselves out of and that we allow ourselves to fall back into. And when we can connect with both sides of that, we get this loop. It's a looping, which is a self-becoming. It's an Ouroboros quality. And I feel that there's a way that we can bootstrap consciousness in a process of aspirational development by getting those perspectives and that place positioned and oriented in the right way. I just wanted to mention those in passing here. So that was part one in chapter one. Chapter one entitled Soul and World in Robert Avens' The Gnosis, and part one, Dasein, Being, and Truth. So I'm going to return to later on, part two.